Today, we are going deep into the philosophy of Viktor Frankl, a man who found a powerful reason to live while he was trapped in one of the darkest places in human history. Honestly, his ideas, which were forged in the hellfire of Auschwitz, might be some of the most vital insights of the entire 20th century. And this quote, this is really the beating heart of his entire philosophy. The idea that if you have a powerful enough why, you can survive almost any how. And for him, you have to understand, this wasn't just some nice-sounding theory. It was a hypothesis he was about to test in the most brutal laboratory imaginable. So let's set the stage a little. Who was this guy, Viktor Frankl? Well, before the war, he was a pretty well-known psychiatrist in Vienna, and his life's work, his big idea, was about to come face-to-face with an absolutely horrifying test. Now, back then, psychology was really dominated by two giants. You had Freud, who said we're all driven by the pursuit of pleasure, and you had Adler, who argued it's all about the will to power. But Frankl came along and proposed this third way. He said, they're both missing the real point. What truly fundamentally drives us as human beings is our search for meaning.
And then, 1944 happens. Frankl, who is Jewish, is deported to Auschwitz. The loss he experienced was just total and immediate. His wife, his parents, his brother, his entire world gone. And that manuscript, the physical copy of his life's work that he had hidden in the lining of his coat, that was torn away from him on his very first day.
Just try to imagine that. No family, no possessions, no career or identity. He didn't even have a future he could count on. Everything that told him who he was from the outside was just gone, erased. Which, of course, brings us to the most important question of all. When everything, and I mean everything, is stripped away from you, what is left? Is there anything inside of us that external forces can't touch? And this is where the entire story shifts from one of despair to one of incredible discovery. Because what Frankl discovered in that absolute abyss was something he would later call the last human freedom. This is the big turning point, the profound insight that he would spend the rest of his life sharing with the entire world. This right here is probably his most famous quote. He saw with his own eyes that even in the face of unspeakable physical and psychological torture, there was one little space the guards could never get into, the space inside a person's own mind where they got to decide how they would respond to it all.
So this is it, the last human freedom. It's this untouchable inner power to choose your response. It's not about changing your situation. For him, that was completely impossible. It was all about choosing your inner stance towards that situation.
And you've got to understand, this wasn't some feel-good motivational poster slogan. Frankl was a psychiatrist, and he was making a clinical observation. The logic was just so simple and powerful. If this freedom to choose your attitude can exist in the hell of a concentration camp, well then it has to exist absolutely everywhere, for every single one of us. So after the war, he took this incredible discovery and he formalized it. He created a whole new school of psychotherapy called Logotherapy. The word logos is Greek for meaning. So it's literally therapy based on the idea that our most fundamental drive is our will to meaning. This chart really puts it all into perspective. So you've got Freud on one side saying we're all just chasing pleasure. You've got Adler saying, no, we're all chasing power. And then here comes Frankl saying, nope, you're both wrong. We are chasing meaning. He saw that the people who survived the camps weren't always the physically strongest. They were the ones who had a meaning waiting for them on the outside, a child they had to see again, a book they needed to finish writing. That why gave them the strength to somehow endure the how. Okay, so if meaning is really that important, that powerful, then how in the world do we find it, especially when we're suffering? This is where Frankl's work gets super practical. He basically laid out three paths. First, there are creative values. This is the meaning we get from our work, our art, from what we create and give to the world. Second, experiential values. This is what we take from the world, things like the love we feel for another person, or just appreciating the beauty of a sunset. But it's this third one that is so absolutely radical. Attitudinal values, the meaning you can forge by choosing how you face suffering that you cannot change. This was the source of meaning that Frankl himself had to rely on every single day in Auschwitz. When you can't create anything and you can't experience beauty, you can still find profound meaning in how you bear your burden. The courage to face something you can't change with dignity instead of despair. That, he said, is a source of meaning that no one can ever take away from you. And this all led him to coin this amazing phrase. Tragic optimism. Now, this is not blind positivity. It's not that cheesy, everything happens for a reason stuff. It's an eyes-wide-open yes to life and its meaning. Not by pretending tragedy doesn't exist, but precisely in spite of it. It's affirming life even when life is impossibly hard.
So what does all of this mean for us? Right here, right now. How does a philosophy that was born in a death camp actually apply to our modern, everyday lives?
Well, Frankl was way ahead of his time. He talked about this modern problem he called the existential vacuum. You might know the feeling. It's that sense of emptiness and boredom that creeps in, not when we're struggling, but actually when we're comfortable. It's that Sunday night dread, when all the distractions of the week are gone and we're left alone wondering, is this all there is?
Think about it. When we're faced with any kind of hardship, big or small, what's our default question? It's usually this one. Why me? It's a passive question, right? We're kind of asking the universe to explain itself, to give us a reason that makes our pain okay.
But Frankl does this brilliant reversal. He completely flips the script. He says we have to stop asking what we expect from life and instead start asking what life expects from us. So the question isn't, why is this happening? The real question is, what is this situation asking of me? What is my responsibility right here, in this moment?
And that shift, as small as it seems, is incredibly powerful. It takes you instantly from being a passive victim who's demanding an explanation to being an active person who is responsible for their response. It's how you take your power back.
So at the end of the day, meaning isn't some treasure you go out and find. It's not a secret you uncover. Meaning is a response. It's the answer that you give, with your actions and your attitude, to the questions that life is asking you all the time.
And really, that brings us right here, to the very end. Frankl's entire profound philosophy can be boiled down to this one final personal question. Whatever you're dealing with right now, good, bad, big, small, what is this moment asking of you? Because the answer to that question, that's where you'll find your meaning.